We've got just a couple of more days till a new year. And so what I'm going to do is share with you my process for how I'm approaching it. And it's actually different from what I've done in the past. And so the main piece in this is how important it is to make the process or approach that we're using to create our new realities and really approach our higher visions with full presence is to make things our own and to do them in a way that speaks to us personally versus some kind of formula that somebody else has shared. Now, of course, there are certain pieces that other people discuss that will speak to us, and that's great. But when we just copy and paste, most of the time that leaves much to be desired, and we kind of lose the sense of self and then enter into whatever the program is that we're trying to mimic. And so, of course, like other people, I have tried aspects of that in the past and really found it wanting. Like it disconnected me rather than connected me to my whole self and my power and what I could really hear within my own intuition and what was calling. So I'll start by maybe just talking about some of the things that, like everyone to some extent, I have tried. And this was, a lot of it was many years ago, when I was younger, because I quickly realized that it just didn't, those things didn't speak to me. So we know about setting goals and having, a year planned, and some people are very logistical about it. They've got their beautiful calendars and they've put in the first quarter, I'll do this, in the second quarter, and they have that really logical approach to it. And honestly, if it's working for you and you have a fantastic life, great. I'm not sitting here trying to tell you to do it differently. But what I will share will offer you things that approach actually doesn't. And I think there's countless discussions and interviews with people who have done it that way, created immense success even, and then, came to a point where they realized, what was that all about? What was I actually trying to do? And they came to a place where they realized they were also missing something that was perhaps in some ways more crucial to them from their inner self. And I like the union of the two, right? I'm not here to say, oh, like we're just going to sit and revel in happy emotions and forget about, creating in the world. What I share and teach and guide people in is bringing those two together so that the joys that we experience through the material, create that or bring fulfillment, right? They're not just empty, or vice versa. We have all the great emotions and we kind of live in a cloud, but then are ignoring our reality and what we could actually be creating and enjoying and engaging with in the world. So the goal approach didn't last very long with me, right? I admit, like even now, sometimes I get a little tempted with it because it provides a really dopamine hit, right? There's something so exciting about saying, hey, I'm going to achieve this goal by this date, or make this amount of money, and to do it in that kind of hustle approach, right? Like you're working out for it. And again, like there's, when I kind of break that down, what is it that is exciting me? What is it that is getting me activated? There are a couple of things that are happening in that experience that are worthwhile. And if I can really pinpoint those, then I can make it my own. Right? And then I know there's some people, for example, who've tried, there's this one word that I'm going to kind of download this, and that's my next year is going to be about that word. And again, to me, that's still a mental approach. And we go through so many different emotions and experiences in a year to then just focus on one, for me, felt limiting. And I just found to focus on that didn't feel as fulfilling as it might for other people. And then there's a go with the flow, let me just be present in the moment, and then whatever's showing up, I respond to that, and I trust and I manifest, and I like that very flowy approach. And the challenge I have with that, because I've definitely chosen to go through times where I'm more like that, is that it can veer too much into passive energy, where the human self, the body that is here, the mind that wants to create, gets left out, and instead it's a response but also reaction to other people's visions instead of your own. So, for me, I've kind of like taken, the what for me feels like the best of all of those, and then brought it into where I am today. And there were a couple of things that I will kind of just backtrack that I began doing some handful of years ago that actually really began to help and allowed me to be where I am today and the way I'm being with a new year coming. And that was, instead of kind of seeing January 1st as a go date, right? Because it would actually give me that energy of, oh, like suddenly I'm in a race and I have to go, right? Bringing that back to like the earlier at the end of the year. So more like around November, starting to kind of cast my vision ahead to the next couple of months and that transition into a new year. And what that did is it took away all of that expectation and stress and tension that I was placing on the calendar time, right? And so I also began approaching the end of the year, the last couple of months, with much more awareness, and instead of oh no, I have to achieve something by the end. And I began to set things in motion, so to speak, start doing things earlier. And that just actually gave me a lot more peace and joy, so that by the time it came to the last couple of weeks of December, I found myself more able to be with myself and take the time that I wanted for myself and do whether it was the reviewing or the casting forward that I desired to do. And along with that, had also been happening was that I was finding certain goals that I actually had were starting to kind of happen, because I kind of took my hands off and backed off a bit and allowed there to be the flow along with the desires I had, and instead of like the push and trying to find out how can I achieve this. So again, it kind of creates a sense of a magnet, where it's like I don't know if it's a magnet, maybe like a boomerang, it's like you send something out and then you see what comes back in, right? So it's more of a play between energies. And there's a balance to that, and magnetism is like polarity, right? Two opposites attracting. That's what magnetism is. And so that kind of goal-oriented approach, combined with the flow and the witnessing and observing and receiving, creates a much more grounded energy, but also one that I experience that actually manifests desires into reality much more naturally. So making that shift a handful of years ago into to stop making certain dates so like heavy with expectation, and actually stretching that time out in my mind allowed that whole space to begin reshaping itself. And I used to also find, by the way, that for me, like I found December a very heavy month, even if like everything in my physical world seemed okay, like nothing, it was fine, but it was emotionally, I was very empathic to those kind of energies. And then January would be this yay month, like finally, oh my gosh, we're done with December, now I can create anew, and I have a blank canvas. And I still have some of that excitement, but what that shift starts to do is it allowed December to actually be more of a month where I could just allow the month to unfold. But again, I wasn't caught in the heaviness of it as much. And the things that I chose to do in terms of socializing or doing my own own inner work or taking care of things and closing out the year personally or professionally, like again, it just kind of started to fall into place. And so if you aren't already doing that, I encourage you to kind of perceive the end of the year as a longer time frame that will give you that space. But where that's kind of brought me now is that again, like I also have moments where I feel like I'm going to fall into that the temptation to really have that pressure on the dates. Oh, did I do everything that I was intended to do by the December 31st, and I'm ready on January 1st to begin a whole new vision, right? Like, it's just, you can see how tension creating that is, and it actually ends up working against us. And so to just be able to kind of capture, okay, I'm falling into that energy, and now let's kind of pull myself back from that and actually like just kind of let it be, it can dissipate and dissolve, and you can actually be present and move more into an aliveness that is aware of what's happening now, but is also able to move into an expansiveness, right, into the infinite possibilities that exist. And the whole idea of the quantum and playing with both of that, to me, creates a much more engaged life. But as I said, it also takes us beyond the kind of old goals that we might have set for ourselves. And if honestly we're not meeting them, it's probably because there's something that actually isn't very aligned. We're not connected to it as much as we think we are. And so when I was finding myself even falling into this kind of energy in the last 2 weeks, I had my moments, right? I had my moments when I wanted to push and get certain things done. And then I realized, I was able to see how that was like a mind piece, and what some people might call like, that ego that always wants and is never satisfied. And yet there was like the physical experience where my body felt quite relaxed and very present. And it's like, oh, I would like to kind of chill out a bit and really enjoy some things that were there for me to do. And so again, at the same time, I knew that if I just said, oh, I'm just going to hang out and chill for 2 weeks, like that wouldn't have been personally as satisfying. But, pushing for the goals and putting all my energy into it also wasn't putting me into an optimal state of being. Okay. So when I combined the two, I found, again, there was both a relaxation and an energy. So it was, again, these two opposites coming together, and it began to kind of really revive me in a new way. And I was very surprised. Like, I allowed myself to go through what I was going through and feel those feelings and experience it, but then like I was also observing it and knowing that this isn't the whole story. And then I found within our day or two that like my energy had totally shifted to one of an enthusiasm, like a natural looking forward to, and then as I was looking forward, instead of that December 31st to January 1st, like almost making it like a clash of different energies, like a closing and a beginning, I kind of like just expanded that space into like the closing, and then moving and kind of gliding into the next couple of months. And in that linear format, I can look at into like the first quarter of a new year, and allowing that energy to kind of mix together, it took away the pressures and the tensions of having to achieve and create in a concentrated span of time that was stressful. Because sometimes, by the way, a concentrated span of time, when we have like a week to finish something, we have a deadline and we say we're going to do it in a week, that can actually serve us. But when that's stretched out too long, that's when it becomes a negative stress. But by allowing this, I realized that the certain things that I did want completed by the end of this year, well, was it really necessary? Like, was it actually of a higher benefit? Or was it just a temporary kind of like where the mind is like, oh, if I could just get my hands on that, if that could just happen, right? What was it? So I just allowed myself to contemplate these kind of questions and realize that, yeah, I can still place energy on doing what I'd like before the end of the year. I can still have that energy, but it's not a panic energy anymore. And because I also have that other space. What happens if it didn't happen in those couple of days, but then it happened within 30 days? Like, would that matter really in the big picture? Of course not. I'd be as enthusiastic, right? So I'm sharing this because what I'm doing in this process is I'm seeing where the openings are, and I'm seeing where places that I close down and constrict myself. And so by doing that, this is how we decide or know that, okay, maybe this process sounds great that somebody has shared, but it doesn't quite fit me. And where am I using it to then limit me instead of expand me? Because when there is an energy of expansion, that's when we are open, and we can open to new ideas. We can open to new avenues of things coming into us. We can have something happen in an instant that we could not see coming before, because we've shifted the way we are being with the now, and also being with time, and what it means, and what, again, all the mental concepts we have around it. So with that, and with the other things that I do, and have honed over time and experienced that really like work well for me, and have worked well for many people that I guide, it just kind of feels like a new time in a way that, sometimes it's like, wow, it just like every day can be new, right? It's an energetic thing. And then suddenly I was able to let go of certain things from the past. And I realized, sometimes I'm still hanging on to certain stories about what had happened, and therefore what I think is now possible. And so the enthusiasm and excitement was like, oh, wow, I can actually let that go and be fresh in the moment, and be fresh for the end of this year, and be fresh for the beginning of a new year, right? Like, it's a dance. It's something that, we play with, that we can create with. And it's what's actually allowed me to manifest sometimes unexpectedly big things in short spans of time, while also keeping me moving in the work instead of getting into too much of a passive state where we're like trying to manifest through the mind, and then if something doesn't happen, then we sink down in the emotions, and we end up in this constant loop that is really disempowering. So as I near the end of what I'm sharing today, I just want to encourage you to go into like, what is lighting me up? What perception and the way I view it is actually really expanding me? What is allowing me to really fully show up as who I am now, instead of having to wait for something to happen, wait for the result to happen before I get to be like in my wholeness, in my joy, and be lit up, and be out there taking the kinds of I'll use the word risks, because this is, we feel that energy in the word risk, where we're going beyond the comfort zone and the familiar to create something new, to create something with that new energy. And when I work with people, I work in really practical terms most of the time, but these things that I talk about is kind of the energy in which a person actually begins to transform their relationship to themselves and to their bigger vision. And that's what then allows the doors to begin opening for them. And so I've got a link below if you'd like to work with me, whether it is for a short time or discuss something longer, because this is where, I worked with people creating brand new businesses, leaving one kind of career and shifting to something completely different, or having a business and where it's time for their expansion or to move to their next level. And they know that it's not just practical marketing and strategy and all the things people tell you, or getting the high level clients. They actually realize it's a new embodiment of their new identity, of their new self. And with that, then they take those actions out into the world, and the change begins and the change happens, rather than it being forced onto their reality, because that just doesn't work. And even when it does work, it doesn't last. And even if it worked for a period of time and gave some rewards, it, as I said earlier, was that it can leave still an emptiness that has people question their path and what they've been doing for a long time. And it's like they were acting as a person, as a persona for so long, and they never got to see the gift of who they really are and what they're really available to bring out into the world. So I'm wishing you all the best. Thank you for those who have subscribed, and I'd love to receive comments and hear, where are you setting your sights? Is there something in the video that really touched you, or you are implementing now? That kind of information allows me to then say where I will focus future talks with you. So as I said, as I tend to say, dream bigger, because if you can get the goal that you're thinking of, you probably can go beyond it, right? And when we go beyond it, what happens? We actually open our vision, but we don't put that expectation that has to happen. We actually just begin to open up and realize there are infinite possibilities, and we can start navigating through what really calls us, what is true for us, and to allow that experimentation and exploration so that we get to what is most true. So thank you, and happy holidays.